Welcome to the Blue Fire Digital Network.
Welcome to the Godly Fathers Podcast, a podcast for young dads trying to live a godly life and raise godly children. I'm your host, Morgan Monroe. Let's get into the dad life. Hey guys, welcome back. Hope you are doing very well today. Doing the first book review for the podcast. Anyone who knows me well knows I'm not much of a reader. It's not my favorite thing to do. I am very uncomfortable with silence. That's probably why I do so much commentary stuff. That's probably why I do this podcast, and on my YouTube channel, Geek and Seek, I do a lot of commentary. That's why I'm in a band. I need to be hearing things or talking. I don't particularly like sitting in silence. So reading's not my favorite thing to do. However, my grandmother gave me this book, From Dude to Dad. And it's a very, very short book. It's a very easy read. And, at the time that this episode comes out, we will be less than a month away from my wife's due date for our first child. So I felt like I should probably do a little bit of research. I should probably do a little bit of reading, make sure I'm at least as prepared as I can be. I should also state that I've actually had this book for a while. The review for this has been in the works for a couple weeks. But yeah, let's go ahead and just hop on into it. So the author of From Dude to Dad is Chris Pegula, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He is the creator of a company called Diaper Dude, and they basically make diaper bags for men. And they used to be a really big company. I guess they used to be like one of the top-rated baby product companies. But they had a huge downsize in like 2018. So now if you look around for Diaper Dude, all I can find is a single diaper bag that's available on Amazon. That's really all you can find these days, which seems like it's probably a huge drop in whatever they used to be. So that's too bad. I do know that Chris also has another book and a podcast, but I haven't really delved into either of those things. So if this sounds like a good book and you end up picking it up, maybe check out those other couple things he has going on. But I should also mention that Chris Pegula is definitely not an author by trade. He says dude a lot, unironically, which, says a lot about a person. But I think because he is not a writer, an author by trade, it makes his points come across really easy, because it feels like you're just talking or like hearing a person talk. It's very normal, easy to read. He gets his points across, and then in the book, he uses a lot of his own personal experiences with, dealing with his wife, and he has, I think he has 4 kids. I'll double check that real quick. So yeah, just him using his own personal experiences makes it more relatable, and especially just because he writes like he would talk like a normal dude. Yes, okay, so he has 3 kids, not 4. Like I said, this is a really short book. It's only 161 pages. Very, very digestible. You could probably realistically read this in a single day, but I gotta say, I was not able to do that. The main time that I have to read nowadays is when I'm at work. And when I'm at work, I'm obviously having to work. So it's like when I'm slow, I can maybe read a couple pages and then I have something to do. But what's great about that is the chapters in this book are primarily broken up into time frames during the pregnancy. So the fact that it actually took me a couple weeks to actually get through this book was actually kind of nice, because I had a little bit of hindsight and I had a little bit of foresight during my wife's pregnancy. So how the chapters are broken up is there's a chapter 0, which is kind of before the countdown begins, is what that chapter's called. Then chapters 1 through 3 are the 3 trimesters. Chapter 4 is the birth. Chapter 5 is life with the baby. Chapter 6 is happy and healthy parenting. So, very, very short book, very digestible. And something that I like is because I was having to kind of start and stop, and sometimes I would have to stop like right after a paragraph. I wouldn't even be able to finish a chapter or whatever. Because, I mean, the chapters are like 20 pages or something. But what's nice is all the chapters end in like a bullet point review where it'll just be like, remember this, and then have some bullet points of just kind of like the most important parts of that chapter. So it makes a review really easy. And I've actually gone back and re-looked at those as time has gone on. And I think that's ultimately the best part about this book. And I'll clarify a little bit more with these next couple notes I have here. At the end of the book, there is a weekly pregnancy update calendar. And I think this is actually the best part of the book because it just has week by week where your wife is at in the pregnancy. Sometimes it's, generic stuff like your baby is about this big, your baby is developing, these kind of things. But sometimes it also has tips on how to be helping out your wife. So I'll go ahead and read a quick example. So this is at the end of the book in the pregnancy update calendar. This is week 6. You may notice your partner more sensitive to smells. Morning sickness most likely will have kicked in, and if your partner is able to hold it down, she may notice some signs of weight gain and fuller breasts. Remember, they're not for you to play with. Right now, until about 14 weeks, your little one is susceptible to anything that can affect normal growth. So this is the vulnerable period when many choose to wait to tell others they are pregnant. So both of you need to decide if you want to tell anyone at all or just those closest to you, which is actually something that my wife and I had talked about because we kind of thought going into this that we would probably have a hard time getting pregnant. We got pregnant pretty easily. So then my next concern was, is a miscarriage possible? But we kind of talked about it and we ended up just being so excited that we ended up telling a lot of people probably earlier than we should have. But so that's kind of an example of how the weekly update calendar works. And then let me flip around here. There's also like in sections, like in the middle of chapters, at the ends of paragraphs or whatever, they'll have little what I'll call fun fact sections, right? And these are like just basic tips, did you know scenarios, stuff like that. So here's a one from the second trimester chapter. And that's something else, is a lot of the time wherever they're inserted, it's helpful to wherever it is in the book. So the tips that they're going to give you in the second trimester chapter are relevant to the second trimester. And these are usually just like really, really quick one paragraph things. So here's one real quick. Tips on Braxton Hicks. Braxton Hicks contractions are intermittent uterus contractions, often interpreted incorrectly as false labor. However, unlike real labor, there is no real pattern. They sometimes start around 6 weeks into a pregnancy and are also known as practice contractions. They can be triggered by dehydration, a full bladder, or being overly active, and usually last between 15 seconds and 2 minutes. While they can start to occur as early as 6 weeks of pregnancy, they are most common after the second trimester. So that's kind of just a little taste on what those little insert parts are like. And so this is what I think is the most helpful thing about this book, is there's little things like that you can just kind of go back and review really quickly. Like I said, the bullet point things at the ends of the chapters, the weekly pregnancy update calendar at the end of the book, and then these little quote unquote fun fact sections that are tips. Did you know? One of it, there's one where it's like your wife's not going to feel like cooking, so here's a couple really basic recipes, so like stuff like that. And they're not important enough necessarily to dedicate to the full part of the chapter, but they're helpful. And I found that even once I had finished the book, I would still go back and say, okay, where am I right now? Where is Jenna right now in the pregnancy? And I've just been able to kind of go back and hit those little review sections and stuff. And I found that to be incredibly helpful. I want to do a really, really quick basic rundown on what the chapters themselves are like. So they're pretty self-explanatory. Chapter 0, it actually has a lot of recommendations on how to get pregnant, but it's mostly like health things. It's not like really graphic. It's not like try these positions, It's more like don't get in hot tubs or don't take super hot baths. Eat healthy, stuff like that. It's a lot of recommendations for if you're trying to get pregnant. Here's some health things that you can focus on. And then it also talks about it kind of jumps all over the place if I'm being honest, but it also talks about mentally preparing for change because I will say if there's a downside to this book is it spends a lot of time focusing on the variables that you cannot control. There's a lot of situations where it's just yeah, things are going to change, or yeah, labor is going to be hard. It just is what it is. And I'm like, okay, I know that, but tell me what, tell me what I can control, And maybe that's more of a me problem, but when to celebrate is also in chapter 0. And this kind of goes into what I was talking about of the fear of a miscarriage. And then that specific section in the book is called It's a Celebration, Y'all, or Is It? And no, that is not about abortion. As far as I could tell, Chris Pagula is not a Christian, as far as I can tell. And I will say that this book also came out in 2014, so it's written before the ridiculous abortion worship that is dominating our culture, But it's never really talked about in this book where it's oh, you weren't expecting to get pregnant? Well, here's an option. It never really goes that way, so that's nice. But I should also mention that this book is not. It's not a Christian book by any means. So chapter 1 of the book kind of goes into. Well, okay, so I'll just clump chapters 1 through 3 together because it's mostly the same kind of stuff. But it's a little bit different in the first, second, third trimester. There's obviously little things here and there that are different of as far as how your wife is feeling, what you can be doing to make it easier for her. But it's a lot of preparation stuff. And then, so it's preparation, talking about what's changing in mom's body, how to make her more comfortable. There's talk about your sex life is obviously going to change, so here's what you can expect. Here's what you can do about it. So I don't know how to go with this because on one hand, I know that Christians get really uncomfortable when it comes to sex jokes, but if you're reading this book, you already had sex. So get over it. I don't know. I don't see that as problematic, but again, because he's not a Christian, he does make some crude jokes, but again, he's never graphic about it. So, yeah, there is that. And then specifically chapter 3 does talk more about, what things should you be buying and what classes should you take. So I will say that chapter 3 does differ a little bit in that way. Because it's well, you're going to want a diaper bag or start stocking up on your diapers, stuff like that. And then chapter 4, end of pregnancy preparation. So mom's, not doing great. So help her out even more. So have your hospital bag ready. And I will admit, it is October 12th when I am recording this episode. So it is exactly 1 month from our due date. And we do not have our hospital bag ready. I'm hoping by the time this episode comes out, this episode is going to come out. Let me double check. I can't do mental math like that. This episode is going to come out on the 18th. So let's say that by then we will have that together, but yeah, I should get to that. Chapter 4 also kind of preps you for a lot of the gross stuff that happens in labor, and then also like how to help your wife kind of cope with the pain. Gross stuff, yeah. Something that I don't know if everyone knows is that a lot of women poop when they give birth. And you're just going to do your best and pretend you don't know, all right? Do your best. And then, if you're real queasy with blood, maybe don't be south of the hemisphere, your baby's going to come out covered in cheese-looking stuff, just be prepared for that. It kind of walks you through some of that. And then also, like, are you circumcising your baby? Why or why not? And again, he doesn't seem religious, but he does seem more lenient towards, yeah, you should probably get circumcised. It's less, you're less likely to have your son have infections and stuff down the road, which I've heard different opinions on over the years, especially more recently. So, but there is that. And then chapter 5 is bringing the baby home. And that has a lot to do with baby proofing, which is something that I haven't necessarily thought about because I probably have quite a few hazards that I should not have around a child. And we have a little bit of time to really prep for that in the sense of like, babies don't start crawling until they're a couple months old. So you can have the baby home. And then while you're on tummy time or whatever, helping your baby exercise or whatever, you can kind of, peek around and be like, that needs fixed or that needs taken care of. But I think the chapter 5 also kind of goes into other stuff like introducing your baby to your pets, which is something that I have been concerned about. There's actually a page on the book that's titled, "Please don't let your dog or cats eat your baby." And I was like, oh, well, I mean, I didn't necessarily think that far about it, but I do have 2 dogs and I have 2 cats. I'm less worried about the cats. But the dogs, one of them is a gentle giant. I'm not worried about her. The other one is really hyper, though. She's very, very friendly, but she's very hyper. And I'm just kind of concerned about her getting excited and bumping into the baby or something like that. So again, kind of gives it kind of gives tips on how to slowly introduce your pets to your baby so that that transition just happens a lot nicer. And then it also goes into postpartum depression, which I'll admit is something that I've been thinking about and something I'm a little bit worried about. Apparently, a lot of men get postpartum depression. I didn't necessarily notice that. I've been kind of researching like whether it sounds like that's something I'm going to have to deal with. And I mean, you never know until you get there, but I'm thinking, no, I'm probably not going to get it, but I am really concerned that my wife's going to have it. Mostly because she has really, she's been a trooper. She's really seemingly enjoyed the pregnancy. And I kind of think that once Maya's here, Jenna's mood's going to kind of shift. And apparently it's a really common thing. I mean, think about like all of these hormones and changes in your body, and then all of a sudden, poof, and we're going to go more or less back to normal-ish. So it kind of gives hints on signs to look out for, and then really basic things on what you can do if you think your wife is struggling in that department. And then also encourage you, because men do get it, like, if you feel like you're kind of going down that slope as well, reach out, don't bottle it up. Also talks about traveling for work. If you travel for work, how are you going to deal with that? And then friendship changes, which is something I've also been worried about. I think most of my friends are pretty chill about the whole me becoming a dad thing. I think most of them don't necessarily care either way. Like, for the most part, it should be fine. But I do. One of my closest friends in particular, he's kind of a flaky guy anyways. And he is just years behind me in maturity, if I'm being honest. So I'm kind of worried that there's a chance that he and I won't be so close. So I'm worried about that, but I'm also just trying to be optimistic, and, we'll see how it goes. And it also kind of says like, hey, you're a dad now. You're going to make new friends because of your dadness. So don't worry about it. And then it also, again, to close out chapter 5, also does clarify your sex life again, because in case you had to notice, Mom just went through a traumatic downstairs experience. So, brace for that. I will say, Chris Pagula does kind of talk as if all dudes are horn dogs, which, I think is just kind of to be more funny than anything else, but it does get old from time to time. And then finally, chapter 6 is really just focusing on your marriage, encouraging you to focus on your marriage. You're a parent, yes, but you're a husband first. You're going to parent together better if your marriage is intact. So make sure you're communicating. If it's okay to get a marriage counselor, even if nothing's going wrong, because then you can help prevent problems from in the first place. Make sure you have time set aside for you to get a babysitter and go out on a date. It's stuff like that, which, especially for someone who doesn't necessarily seem to be a Christian by any chance, is nice, because that's kind of what we see biblically as well, right? That we focus on our husband or our wife, and if we do that, that will trickle down into us being good parents as well. So, yeah, that was just nice to hear. So, what are my final thoughts here? Well, it's a quick, easy read, like I've said, and I like getting to go back and review the sections that apply to where I am right here and now. That's been great. And I will say, reading this before having taken a couple classes over that our hospital is hosting, it definitely makes me feel more prepared, because it makes some of the classwork seem more like review than learning new information. Because if I just had a bunch of new information coming at me like crazy, I'd probably get a little overwhelmed. So the fact that I was kind of able to read the book at a slow, digestible pace, and then take the class, and then the class was kind of review. Obviously, classes are better. They are. You're going to get a lot of information thrown at you, but they're also going to give you resources that you can take home with you and review again later. And they're going to talk about things that, a simple book like this isn't going to talk about. So obviously take classes, but I will say reading this book ahead of time made me feel better when I did take the class. It wasn't like I showed up to class and be like, oh, I have no idea what I'm doing. So I think overall, from Dude to Dad, I think this is a great read for a first-time parent, especially if you're on the younger side. I think it's great. But I don't necessarily think the book is that deep. So if you are... if you already have kids and you're wanting to look into a new book to see if you can be better this time through or whatever, I don't necessarily think that this is the book for you, because it is pretty simple and straightforward, which some people like that, but it's not very deep. And I feel like if you're not a first-time dad, there's probably better options for you. But yeah, that's kind of my review of From Dude to Dad. I don't know where all you can get this. Amazon, I think it's on Audible, if you're into ebooks or whatever. So yeah, check that out. Thank you guys for listening. I have no idea what I'm going to talk about in the next episode, but I have a couple weeks to figure it out. And then make sure you're following the Godly Fathers podcast on Facebook and Instagram. I do have my Patreon set back up. So if you want to support the show directly, you can hit up Anchor. But if you just want to support me in general, whether it's through this or my YouTube channels or my band, I do have my Patreon set back up. So the links to that will be in the show notes. So yeah, I hope you guys have a great couple weeks, and I will see you later. Thank you for listening to the Godly Fathers podcast. If you'd like to support the show, head over to anchor.fm/the Godly Fathers podcast to make a donation. Make sure to follow our podcast and leave a positive review, as well as share it with a friend who you think might like it. You can keep up to date with us on Facebook and Instagram at the Godly Fathers podcast. The song used in the intro and outro of this podcast is The Pit by my band Tundra. And until next time, have a great couple of weeks, and God bless.